We are live with SCI TV. I'm Joshua Gordon, the founder of the Sports Conflict Institute. Today I'm joined by Coach Bob Walsh of the University of Maine. Thank you, Coach, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
So, Coach, we have you on today to talk about what it means to build a winning culture and what locker room culture is all about. I know that you are going through this at the University of Maine as a head coach there and reestablishing a winning culture, and what does that look like? And so why don't we begin a bit by what are some of those foundational things that you do as a coach to help build a culture that's winning both on and off the court?
Well, the first thing for us is developing trust. It's about relationships, and my job as the head coach is to create relationships with our players and within our program where we know we can trust each other. And I think sometimes coaches get ahead of ourselves where we expect our players to trust us just because we're the head coach. And I don't think that's the way it works. So developing trust is the #1 priority for us in building our culture, because whatever it is that's important, that's going to be the foundation of your culture, if you're surrounded by people that don't trust you, it isn't going to work. So for me, it's about one-on-one interactions with our players and making sure they understand that we have their best interest in mind. You think about the people in your life that you trust. They're people that you know really well. They're people that you know are looking out for you and have your best interests in mind. So it's not just people that you just met on the street and you got to talking to them. So it takes time. But ultimately develop the right culture, we have to be surrounded by people we trust, and that's everyone in our organization.
And how are those initial interactions set up so that they do build that foundation of trust that you're talking about? And I'm assuming it begins even during the recruiting process as well.
Yeah, it's interesting a couple of ways. So in the recruiting process, you're trying to develop a relationship that's not necessarily just about basketball. Same thing when I took over at the University of Maine. Last year was my first year. You're trying to develop a relationship where these guys understand it's not just, hey, you can score points for me, you can win games for me. It really starts off the court. It really starts when they know that you're interested in who they are as a person. You're going to get those kids to run through a wall for you when they believe in you and believe in what you're saying. So it starts in the recruiting process. It starts with one-on-one conversations with our current players, and it develops over time. I mean, we've been at
himself, does it extend? Is that involving families and other folk around, or what? How broad a stakeholder group is that you're working on that foundational element?
It does, but it's interesting. I think that's one of the areas where you can really build trust is so you get to know the family, certainly the parents, who the key people are in the recruiting process, who the key people are in their lives. Most conversations, at least for us, don't involve basketball. So when I talk to somebody's parents, or I'm checking in with the parents of my current players, we talk about, are you seeing any signs, any issues, any problems? And when the players realize that you're interested in that stuff, that's where trust really starts to build. So
Coach, are we frozen there for a second? Coach, I think we lost you for a moment here. I think a lot of what you were talking about, hopefully you'll rejoin in a moment, was that when you're talking about building trust, you're really extending it pretty far beyond the student athlete himself. Sorry, we lost you for a moment there. wanted to build off of what you were saying, Coach, about extending that relationship beyond and what that looks like. And you were talking initially about core values. Can you share some of those core values that you've been working on and instilling? And obviously, you've done it in other programs with great success as well. You start over again at the University of Maine. You have to rebuild that new culture. What are some of those values that really are the core of what you're doing?
Well, integrity is one of them. I mean, and obviously we've talked a lot about trust. That's one of the biggest words in our program. Our compete level is really important, and I think it's a way that you develop trust. The way we compete on and off the court, in life, in the classroom, in practice, in games. That's really part of our foundation is, can I trust you to give this program everything that you have? And then, one of the values we have is toughness, resilience. Those are kind of the three key ones for us. And, toughness is mental and physical. And where, hey, can I count on you when things aren't going your way? Those are really three things that are the foundation of what we do. And when you get guys, that believe in those three things, we feel like we can build a championship culture.
And Coach, how much of that is finding people who already have those values, and how much of it is developing and scaffolding those values as part of what a team can bring to the individual?
It's a little of both. To be honest, you've got to recruit it. I think it's easier to recruit than it is to teach. I think when you recruit it properly, you then your culture starts to establish, and then you can bring in some guys that might sort of adapt to the culture. I was at Rhode Island College for 9 years, and as we established our culture, probably after 2 or 3 years with those principles, that culture tended to sort of spit out the guys that didn't fit. They'd come on recruiting visits, and our guys would say, yeah, it's not a good fit. They're not going to make it. Or if they did come to school and want to be a part of the team, they wouldn't survive very long. So you certainly have to do both. You can create an environment where the kids up and develop those values. But if you recruit a kid who's not very trustworthy and you want them to be trustworthy, you're going to have trouble.
And Coach, that's great. And a lot of what we've seen a lot in the last couple of years in sports are teams that not only are struggling to build the type of culture you're talking about, but they're actually have cultures that are fairly negative at times. And the media's hopped all over it, where you've seen issues in particular of hazing, bullying, and some of these. What kind of mechanisms do you have in place as a coach to make sure that your student athletes are having the type of experience that you want them to have?
Well, that's a great question. We do a couple of things that I think are a big part of sort of the transparent culture that we run. Number one is we empower everybody in the organization. So we don't have a class system. We don't talk about seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. We define leadership really simply as making the people around you better and more productive, and we expect everybody to do it. So we want our freshmen to come in, and if they're vocal, we want them to be vocal. If if they're just great work ethic guys and they're in the gym all the time, they're going to make people better that way. So I think when you empower everybody in the organization to be a leader and you put them on a level playing field, you might eliminate some of that sort of tiered system where you may have, the older guys, the veteran guys, intimidating, bullying, hazing. One of the other things I think that's really important is to listen a lot as a coach. I tell my guys all the time, if I thought cursing you out was the best way to get the most out of you, I would curse you out all the time. I just don't think that's the best way to get the most out of you. And I learn the most when I talk to my players. And when they come in and we've developed that trust and they can talk to me about, some of the things they like, some of the things they don't like, some of the things they didn't respond to, it sort of keeps you in check as a coaching staff. So, the old school, my way or the highway, isn't really my personality. I don't think it's the most effective. And I think a lot of times that approach can lead to sort of a negative culture where, the players just feel like, well, I just got to put my head down and take it because this is the way the guy, is going to yell at me all the time.
Makes great sense. And Coach, now you also share some of your thoughts on a website at coachbobwalsh.com. I noticed on there that you have a leadership academy that you're part of that talks a lot about some of these same things and themes. Can you?
Yeah, I'd love to. I started it at Rhode Island College, third year, and really it was a way for young coaches, was the thought in mind to sort of get some training as far as getting into the business, moving on in the business, and learning your own personal leadership philosophy. I learned when I became a head coach at Rick that I wanted to be a great leader and developing a culture and the stuff that we've talked about. So we created this academy that's been terrific. You know, we've had over 200 people now for 3 years, sharing leadership ideas, great guest speakers. And really what it is it's a way to sort of challenge your personal leadership approach or help develop your personal leadership approach so that when you advance in whatever business you're in, you're prepared.
That sounds fantastic. And any final thoughts on this topic of culture and how do we build these winning cultures as we start to wrap our conversation here?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand in athletics with team sports, I think the culture is what attracts the players. I don't think it's the players that make the culture. So I think in college, a lot of be comfortable losing a talented player. But I think it's really important that culture comes first. Your talent isn't going to develop the right culture. Your culture will develop the right talent.
Yeah, fantastic words of wisdom. The idea of alignment as opposed to just trying to impose one way. It sounds fantastic. And Coach, what are the ways people can follow you? I know you have a presence on Twitter and the web. Can you share those as we wrap so that people can continue their conversation with you beyond this show too?
Certainly. Love when people reach out to me at Coach Bob Walsh on Twitter, and coachbobwalsh.com is the website online. Great.
Thank you so much. Good luck again with this year ahead. I know that good times are ahead with the type of approach you're taking. It has to work, and good luck to you.
Josh, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it.